Nightmare Ariola, and you're watching Mission Boxing Today on YouTube.
Heavyweight boxing fans, what's the deal? All right, man. So I was just sitting here thinking about Luis Ortiz and his being the mandatory for the WBA. And I was also thinking about KUBRAT Pulev, you know, he's the IBF mandatory. And it's just crazy, man, because, you know, I was listening to Eddie Hearn on a recent interview, and he was saying that Joshua's next opponents will either be the Klitschko rematch, because we know that they had a rematch clause in that contract for that fight, for their first fight. If that's not going to be the fight, they're talking about Pulev for the IBF. All right, he's the mandatory, okay? And then Luis Ortiz will get his title shot. And the more I think about this, man, is, you know, first I came to the conclusion that maybe, and I didn't know how possible it was. Maybe it's not possible at all, you know, but I was thinking that Pulev should fight Luis Ortiz. Then the winner of that can fight the winner out of Joshua and Klitschko. But I know Klitschko has a rematch clause. Okay, so that's not going to happen. That was just me, you know, trying to have some wishful thinking and trying to make all this shit make sense, you know, as we strive for a undisputed champion. You know what I mean? So I thought we could, you know, I thought that would be the best thing to do, but obviously it's not going to work out like that. So I really think that Luis Ortiz deserved his shot before KUBRAT Pulev. And I understand that the IBF and WBA, they give, you know, their title holders different, you know, as far as time restrictions, as far as when they have to defend the title against the mandatory. And if you go and look at the WBA rankings, man, look at Luis Ortiz. Now, I know Luis Ortiz had his situation. He fought, was it 2011 in September against Coyote. He won that fight. Then that fight got overturned to a no contest because of failed drug tests. And that report came out, I believe, January of 2015. So months later. Okay, so besides that little hiccup in his career, if you go look at those WBA rankings, man, and I'm not making this up. I swear I'm not making this up. You go look at the WBA rankings. Luis Ortiz has been like as high as rated number 2. I know he was behind David Haye for a while. I'm talking about 2013, man. He was rated as high as number 2. He has been the interim champ for a while now. What, 2014 or something? 15 maybe? And since October 2015 on the WBA website, he's been the number 1 as far as the contenders. He's been rated number 1 since October 2015. Now, mind you, 2013, 2014, he was always in their sanction of like number 1, number 2. He'll be somewhere in there. So, I mean, dude, when is he going to get his title shot? Now, some of you may say, well, hey, he's the mandatory, but it's like, he's going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. And he isn't the first fighter that's had to go through something like this. This is boxing, you know what I mean? Just if you want to go from what happened, you know, from him being rated number 1 in 2015 October, and as of today, that's how many months, y'all? That's what? 2016, 12. Man, we're talking close to, what, 20 months? That's a long damn time. And then, you know, I understand the WBA last year, they were putting together that tournament where Ortiz was scheduled to face the winner out of Klitschko and Joshua. And his fight was supposed to be against Alexander Usanov. Usanov, they had some trouble trying to make that fight. The last I heard, Usanov and his team did not want to sign VADA. They didn't want to sign up for VADA. That's why that fight didn't go down. That's the last I heard of that fight, okay? So that fight went down the drain. So 2016, Ortiz fights Tony Thompson. He fights Malik Scott, and he fights David Allen, okay? So no title shot 2016. Now, I understand that Klitschko was tied up with Tyson Fury for a while. That kind of messed everything up. So I understand that. And then now he has to wait even longer because there's a rematch clause in a contract between Klitschko and Joshua. So, but it's just leaving Ortiz out in the cold, man, where it's like, damn. And then you look at the WBC rankings, he's rated number 2. this is why I thought it was paramount that the WBC made Ortiz versus Stiverne, because now you have a guy like Stiverne getting another title shot. Really didn't do anything, you know, didn't fight in no type of interim fights or final eliminator fights to position himself. They literally just gave it to the guy. Although I know what happened with Povetkin, you know what I mean? But shit, Stiverne had a failed test during that camp too for Povetkin. And I guess they fined him and had, you know, he had to do some community service and had a fine. But, you know, so that's a recycled fight without a guy like Luis Ortiz getting his shot, okay? Then you look at a guy like Pulev, the IBF, right? Now, Pulev, when he fought Klitschko, I know to earn that spot, he was ordered for the IBF. I know he was ordered to fight Ustinov for the #2 spot. He beat Ustinov. Then he was ordered to fight in a final eliminator against Tony Thompson for the #1 mandatory spot. He did that. That's how he got his shot against Klitschko. Now, you know, I'm not trying to blame the IBF or, you know, blame the IBF for the actions of the WBA. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just talking about Ortiz and Pulev and just title shots and, you know, shit like that. So then you got Pulev, who this is his second time around being ordered by the IBF in a couple years here to fight for the title. You know what I mean? Like, and then this time around, you know, it was kind of confusing with the IBF because it was a lot of confusion. You guys don't remember, it was a lot of confusion with, this was around the time Josh was getting ready to fight Brazil. Parker was scheduled to fight Takam. That fight, first people thought it was just a normal, how can I say, normal eliminator fight. Okay, but they ended up making Parker Takam the final eliminator. They made Pulev versus Chisora the voluntary eliminator for the #2 spot in the rankings. That's why when you look at the rankings of the IBF, they have Pulev at #2. He fought Chisora for that #2 ranking in the voluntary eliminator. Then after they had that fight between Pulev and Chisora, Pulev they were going to make him fight the next available contender in the IBF for the you know, the mandatory spot, but that didn't happen. So they just kind of elevated Pulev and just ordered Pulev to fight the winner out of Joshua Klitschko. Okay, so it just makes you think, man. It's like, damn, so a guy like Pulev, nothing against Pulev, man. To me, he is a legit top 10, not just sanctioned body, but a legit top 10 fighter. But it's just like a guy like Pulev gets another shot at the title in a few years here, you know, span. Even guy like Eric Molina, nothing against Eric Molina, but Eric Molina got to fight Deontay Wilder for a title and Anthony Joshua for a title. You know what I mean? Now you got a guy like Stiverne who's about to get his 2 title, or Stiverne held the title. So, you know, he went into the fight defending the title, okay? But now he's getting a rematch, you know what I mean, for a title. So it's kind of like, damn, and Ortiz still hasn't got one title shot yet. Now, I know people want to say, well, who has Ortiz beaten? I mean, if you guys want to play that game, man, we can say that about every heavyweight, right? I always see people in my comment section say, well, who has Wilder beaten? Who has this guy beaten? Who has Parker beaten? Who has Joshua beaten? I know Joshua just beat Klitschko, but you guys will be amazed at some of the comments that are in my comment section when I'm conversing with fans. All right, so I don't want to play the who he's beaten game. I mean, these guys all need to fight each other, so when they do beat each other, then they can say, hey, I beat another top 5 or somebody, a legit top 10 fighter, not just a sanctioned body top 10, but an overall top 10 opponent. You know what I'm saying? So he beat Jennings. He got the wins over Thompson and Malik Scott. Yes, those guys aren't top 10 fighters, but to me, they're decent competition when you're trying to get these other big fights with the title holders, man. You know what I mean? So I just wish the IBF and WBA could have worked together somehow, some way to have Pulev versus Ortiz, then the winner fights in a unification fight, being that the WBA and IBF are both involved in this. You know what I mean? But it is what it is, man. It's just kind of confusing. And then, yeah, if Pulev does get his shot, let's say there's so many things that could happen, because if Joshua fights Klitschko first, what is that fight supposed to happen? What, October, November, somewhere around there? If that fight happens, then the Pulev would face the winner, what, 4 months from then? And then you still got Ortiz. So, I mean, when is Ortiz going to get his shot? 2019? Literally, like, what, late 2018? Middle 2018? I mean, this is getting ridiculous here, man. being that this guy's been in their rankings 2013, 2014, 2015. He's been in their top 5 for years now. Again, and some of these circumstances were kind of messed up because you had the regular title holders there too, with Chigaev held it a few years that Ortiz was rated, and then Lucas Brown won it, then he lost it because of the drug test. I mean, just a whole bunch of stuff. Then Povetkin held on to it for a while back in the day. So it's like, when is Luis Ortiz going to get his shot? But I don't even care about what sanctioned body, just anybody. Anybody. I mean, this guy is a top 5 overall heavyweight, in my opinion. And he has been for a few years now, man. So whether you think he wins or... Now, I'm not saying he deserves these shots because I think he's going to win. I don't know if he's going to win some of these. These are, on paper, these are some competitive matchups to me. You know what I mean? But shit, man, let's get him in there and see what he can do. You know, I know he had the one hiccup with his drug test, but I'm not going to hold that against the dude. The dude's had 6 fights since then. That was the test, or the fight was 2014, and then the test result came back to change everything, came out in January 2015. I mean, dude, it's, come on, man. Like, how, you know, he did what he had to do. He paid his fine and, you know, went through all of that. So that's in the past now. Now, if he does it again, then that's a different story. But, I mean, man. In the WBC, I feel as if should just made Ortiz the mandatory instead of Stiverne. I would have liked for them to fight and, you know, the winner gets Wilder. But if we had to just do the rankings, I just don't see how he just wasn't the #1 contender, man. This is just weird, man, that Luis Ortiz probably will never get a title shot in a foreseeable future. I mean, when? Like, when is this stuff going to happen, man? Especially with Joshua. Again, and it's not, you know, Joshua's going to have to win these fights. Now, I know, including myself sometime, we just talk about these fighters as if they're just going to win their next fight. You know what I mean? But Joshua will have to go through Klitschko and Pulev again before he even gets to Luis Ortiz. You know what I'm saying? So, wow, man, it almost makes you think, like, with the WBA, where they, I'm not sure they'll strip him, man, but just like, damn, man, Luis Ortiz is on the back burner again. But, you know, one thing I can't say, man, there are some other fights out there for him, I think, that could be very intriguing while he tries to wait. I know he had a fight with Rossi scheduled, was it last month, 2 months ago, and that fight got canceled. Ortiz said he had a hurt hand. I think it was his hand or his thumb or something. Something was hurt. He pulled out of that fight, okay? But I don't want to see him come back and just try to fight Journeyman. I know he's waiting. I know when he has connections with Eddie Hearn was trying to make Jarrell Miller and Luis Ortiz in the Barclays, because I know Hearn wants to come over here and start to do shows over here in the U.S. I remember that was being talked about, you know. So can Luis Ortiz get a decent payday against Andy Ruiz Jr. or a Jarrell Big Baby Miller or somebody? I would love to see it, because it just don't seem like that title shot's going to be anywhere in the near future, man. It's like, when? Like, because like I said, Pulev and the Klitschko rematch. Unless Klitschko says the hell with it, I don't want the rematch, then he just have to fight Pulev. You know, it'd be quicker, but 2 fights in between them, I don't know. And then one of them is the big fight with Klitschko. So who knows, man? Who knows? But just looking at this is just tough to see this type of shit, man, with Luis Ortiz. I just wish the WBC would have made him the mandatory, man. You know, I don't know. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section. I'm out.